Hello. Hello. I can't hear
Hi,
anyone. Oh, there you go.
how are you? We're,
Hi, I'm well. How
we're going to start in about 2 minutes, okay?
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Not this way. Oh, no, not this way. Do you? So, I mean, like you're busy. Yes. I think I'm more busy than it's all right. It's keeping me busy. Yeah. So is it volunteer work what you do, or do they? Pretty much. Okay. Okay. Yeah, but take it easy. Wow. Oh my goodness. That's not the life thing. Yes. Wow. I got a few more years. Is that right? Yeah. But then I'm like, I got a young child, so I got a few more extra years on top of it. Yeah. Yeah, all my kids grown and grandkids 10, 11, days at the moment, so it's just sunset stays home. It's good company though. Good company. Yeah. He said, "How long am I gonna be?" He's always there. Oh, how is he? He's 42. Wow. Wow. Every night it's great. All you gotta do is just turn your phone off. Yeah, yes. Every day. Good morning, grandkids. Hey, Corey. Can you hear us?
Yes, yes, yes. Good morning.
Good morning. We'll start in about 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'm in the state building. The garage is out of power, so I had to park on the street. And so I need to move my car before I get a ticket.
Okay. No worries.
So, but yeah, the garage here in the state building is out of the power is out, so no one can park in the garage this morning.
Oh, wow. They should just give them a discount for the day.
They should. They should.
And that's all for free. On Green Day. Okay. I know. And good morning, everyone. Good morning. Everybody's in line.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here at the April meeting of the Racial Equity Consortium. I appreciate you all taking the time to be here today to discuss the important issues that we have. And again, welcome. And we have a great presentation that will be had, and I want you all to listen intently and answer lots of questions, ask a lot of questions. And I will turn it over to Dr. Williams and Ms. Huntington to give their opening remarks and things.
I too would like to we keep get together to continue the important work that we're engaged in. Even in spite of being with a granddad, when you have a granddaughter that just looks at you and granddad, Mom, you can't take me to school, can you? What are you gonna do? But more important, it was just very, very happy to be with everyone this morning and continue the important work that we're engaged in, because since our last meeting, obviously, the elephant in the room, who resides in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, continues to spew his venom, and along with his cast of characters, trying to be politically correct here, and that just enhances our desire, our need to do the work that we're engaged in, and we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to fight back and do what's right. And so I'm just glad that all of us here, person in our call, that we will continue to work in that manner.
I will thank each and every one of those online who took the time to join us. We'd love to have seen all of your faces around the table, but nonetheless, we thank God that you were able to be with us. And so, I don't want to hold up because we have things on our agenda, and welcome. And I'm glad to see that you're here and hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Williams and Ms. Huntington. I appreciate your opening remarks. We will now have just a quick roll call so we all can know who is here in person as well as virtually. I will start with those on the WebEx. So if you can just give your name and your position of who you are, if you're a member of REC, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good morning, Fleur McKendall, President of the Delaware State Conference of Branches of the NAACP, and I am a voting member of REC, and I'm so glad to see everyone today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Pierce, Racial Equity Consortium, alongside the College of Agriculture, Science, and Technology.
Welcome.
Good morning, Willis Yacht, Delaware Sierra Club. Good to be back this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Siobhan White, Director of the Delaware Office of Supplier Diversity.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Ilya Moses. I am the DEI Administrator here at the SCYF, the Kids Department.
And we earlier had Corey Priest, who said he had to run out, so he's here to the Department of Justice. So, Dr. Williams, Ms. Jane, and myself have introduced ourselves. I'll turn it over to Jalen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jayla Powell, CEO and founder of Out Loud DE, also Program Development Manager for Cover Connect.
Good morning, Cassandra Davis. I'm with the Department of Correction. I'm the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Director there, and I'm an ex officio member of the Racial Equity Consortium.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Shepard. Thank you for letting me be with you all today. So I'm Enterprise Sales and Strategic Staffing Director for Placers, so that's a staffing firm, but I'm here representing Food Bank today.
Good morning, Loretta Benson. I'm here on behalf of Jane Buffington, and I am the chair of the first
chair of the 36th District for Sussex County, and I'm the first vice chair for the Democrat Party in Sussex County.
Thank you so very much for all the introductions, and we look forward to working with everyone as we move forward in our work of the Racial Equity Consortium. So I now have the pleasure of, let's approve we don't have a forum, so we can't approve the agenda, but this is the agenda. So let me say that we do have a presentation with the Delaware Food Bank to talk about food insecurities and food deserts in the state, and what we can do as a group to address those issues. So I have the pleasure now of introducing, and you heard from her, Ms. Sarah Shepard. She's a native Delawarean, born and raised in Newcastle County. She is a graduate of the University of Delaware, and she works with placers as a leader, passionate about bringing jobs to Delaware and igniting sparks with business and next level talent. Today, she is here representing the Food Bank of Delaware because that is her passion. And she's going to discuss that. So along with her having a passion for the community, she's a wife, she's a mother, and hopefully she's a friend to the respect. So welcome.
Thank you. Is it okay if I stand?
Sure.
Thank you all so much for having me, and thank you, Michael, for introducing me to this amazing group. I'm so excited and honored to be here with you today. So as shared, I'm very, very passionate about what I'm here to speak to you all about today, and I hope that you've already heard about the Food Bank of Delaware and are familiar with their work. But just to share a little bit about myself and my connection to the food bank, I've been volunteering with them since I was in high school. But the last couple of years I've gotten much more involved because I think the need has gotten much more dire in the state. So what I do is I work very closely with different workforces throughout the Mid-Atlantic for my day job. So part of that connected me specifically to Kent County because we have a couple hundred people in the workforce, in our workforce, who are on a temp basis for manufacturing facilities within Kent. So on a day-to-day basis, interacting with this workforce, they would often come into my office and say, you know, I'm supporting a large family, I'm working back-to-back shifts. Some of these individuals will work a 12-hour shift and then go to another job immediately after, you know, sleeping for 2 hours a night. And more and more people just came in and started saying, you know, I'm really wondering, is there anything that you can give me for my shift? So we started keeping food in the office, and it just became more and more a part of my day-to-day life, and to the point where I just felt like I needed to do something greater. And the staff of the food bank are some of the most amazing people I've ever met. They do this all day, every day. But as I'm sure you've heard, what's going on right now with the president's changes and everything, it's absolutely gutting the work that is being done to the point where it's not okay. So I'll start by directing you to this handout. And if you're sitting on over there, you might be missing a couple, but there are more over here that I printed me out, unfortunately, but everyone online can have this as well. So these are the statistics from 2022. The bank is still working on their updated numbers from last year. And I want you to look at all of these numbers and cut them in half. And that is the effect that is being had on the food bank due to federal funding cuts, USDA cuts. Maybe you've seen a post on LinkedIn recently about how 900,000 meals are no longer being delivered to the food bank due to these cuts. I personally know individuals in this county, in every county, who rely on these meals, and they aren't getting them. So I originally connected with Michael because of a very specific idea that came out of the last mass distribution that we had at the Dover Motor Speedway. So the food bank often does mass distributions, well, they do them about quarterly, but we have mobile pantries within certain businesses throughout the community. But the mass distributions affect the largest number of people. So we actually just had in February the largest event that we've ever had yet. We had thousands of people lined up. So it's on the average, we served about 1,000 people at those events. We had over 1,500 lined up, and we actually had to turn some people away because we ran out of food. But at this last event, I partnered with local businesses to try to collect items that we could give out to the community besides just food, things that have been asked about, like school supplies for kids, diapers, wipes, formula. And it was all gone within the first hour. There was so much demand for it, but the community definitely needs more support than what the food bank can provide, even though they're doing so much great work already. So there were some families that came through where they couldn't afford car seats, so they had babies in the front seat, like there's some felt, and a couple of moms who came through and said, can we have some extra milk so we can feed our newborns? And we had to share that, unfortunately, you can't give a newborn baby cow's milk in the formula. And we had run out of formula, so we were giving these individuals just money from our pockets, trying to connect them into the community, so continue to support them. But I mean, we walked away from that event. I don't think there was everyone was in tears, and you don't stop thinking about it. I have a mother with a 3-year-old, and it kept me up for weeks. So coming out of that event, the planning committee, we had lunch and we just started brainstorming. There has to be something we can do to meet this need specifically for the kids. The need is greater, it's across our state, it's across other states, but what can we do? What's within our control right now? Can we get these kids the support that they need, especially since, which is crazy to say, there's legislation that's been going around about making school meals no longer free. And if school meal isn't free, there's some kids who won't eat. And I can't believe it, but we need our kids to eat. We need our babies to have the nutrition that they need to grow up strong and healthy. And we want these kids to be fed so they can learn, because education is opportunity. And that's how this problem changes. So I just started making some phone calls, sending out some random messages, and wonderful people like Michael answer. He was actually the only person to answer. And we started talking about this, and he said, I absolutely want to be involved. What's your idea? So I shared with him that I would love to take what the community is already excited about and make it an opportunity for a mass intake event for individuals who are passionate about this or who just have needs to bring in, a can of formula, a box of diapers, some wipes. If we all just add a little bit to our grocery list, like, we can make a big impact. And I thought about, specifically in Kent, what is the big opportunity, that people are excited about already? And thought, well, this John Jackson in the homecoming game, that would be a really good one. Is there any opportunity for DSC to partner with us? So I think that we do have that opportunity, and like I said, that there's a chance that we could do that, and I'd love to just talk about, how we make that into something that can support the food bank, especially because when you look at this other handout, this one says Hunger in Delaware at the top. These numbers have actually gone up since 2022. The problem is not going away. The problem is getting worse. There are more people in both Newcastle County and Sussex County than in Kent, but Kent has the highest percentage of food insecurity in the state. It is also accessible for Newcastle County and Sussex County if we can find a way to take what we bring in for this event, and I can get it distributed. I can get the food bank to distribute it to other areas if we get to the point where we have leftovers, which is the goal. But the goal for the event that I'm proposing is that we impact at least 2,000 families. And I think that we could do that at minimal cost by advertising along with the homecoming game. The food bank and my team, we can provide all advertisement. We can do all of the labor, all of the logistics. We would simply have to have a space where we can collect here, and we would have to get the word out. I'm personally going to dedicate some time to partnering with businesses to hopefully have donations in bulk. But due to what's happening with federal funding and all of these decisions that are being made, I think if the business community doesn't step up, people are going to go hungry. We already have a lot of businesses in Delaware that do donate to the food bank, but with the amount of cuts that have happened, the major donators are large businesses and the grants that come through the Longwood Foundation for the food bank. I know that they are assessing right now they need to make staff cuts because that's where we are. So I'm really just trying to go out and spread the word. I know I'm not the best speaker, but just to talk about what we are seeing in the conversations that are being had. I'm a member of the Leadership Delaware community, and I spoke with my friend Leah Brown, who is staff member of the food bank, and she's doing this as well. And I spoke to my friend Sade Truitt, who is a DSU grad, and she said, yes, like go, they will be receptive, like they're your people, let's talk about this. So you're going out on the food today to hear what your thoughts are, and I'd love to hear from you guys because you are leaders in this community. And I think it's only through leaders making connection that we can make change.
Excellent. Thank you. I do have a question that as we talk about brainstorming, I believe this is very critical. It's something that we definitely need to consider doing. I'm a part of an organization in which we have weekend bags of food for students. Only in one elementary school here in Dover, but each week we give up over 400 bags. And I'm like, I didn't even realize, had no idea when you're packing in, we run out of food. It's sad, but also eye-opening and realizing that's something that we definitely need to do. Is there a way, as we lead up to this, we're going to talk to people here at Del State, if we can have some type of educational forum, workshops, something to talk about the need, food insecurity, food deserts, where we are in terms of funding being cut, so we have an informed giver, so to speak. Is that possible that the food bank could assist with that type of educational piece?
Absolutely. So the food bank team, we always say that they're adaptive and resilient. So they will go wherever they need to be. We can change up whatever we need to do. We just don't have funds to put anything on ourselves. So I can get a great team to come to the presentation. We have the community, gathering at a specific place that's okay with us using that space. Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm thinking, and I know you mentioned the culminating event will be something here at Delaware State. Would it be possible to have food collection spots throughout the state with the idea that this is going towards the bigger thing?
I'm hoping if it's possible, like if we have the manpower, that maybe we could do something like this in Newcastle County and Sussex. Because I think if it's not an event located in each county, people may not feel like connected enough to it. But we are working on it.
In Sussex County, we do Carolyn in the Circle.
Okay.
And Carolyn in the Circle, we have a bin, lack of a better word, that is filled. Everyone coming to Carolyn in the Circle has to bring canned goods. And the county that's right here on the circle. And it's filled every year, but they just do it at Christmas, just before Christmas. And maybe what we need to do is possibly have multiple occasions where we're collecting goods and different, like I was just thinking, just at this particular, because I just saw, we have the powwow coming up, and those type of things, that could set up a booth or and with a bin there, collect food and donate people to help.
Right. I think it's a great idea. I know in Newark, with one of our churches who the pastor happens to be first vice president, and we support that effort financially. Every month, because of the generosity of the food bank, we're able to distribute foods to people and it's been done for probably the last 3+ years. And we've often talked about how can we look at expanding. I'm intrigued by what you shared this morning, and would like to probably, after, I'm a big pilot person, after we do a wonderful job here in Kent County, and we show that it's really successful. I mean, for instance, I would have some real tangible data to go to the university and say, hey, maybe you might want to do something like this. And so I'm very excited about this, and I just think it's a great idea and one that we should look at. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I'm assuming, and I think rightfully so, it's going to be very successful. And it might be something we might want to do on a regular basis.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Right. And I know we have our state president, and also who has phenomenal ties to Kent County. I was wondering, Madam President, what are some of your thoughts?
Good morning again, everyone. I agree with you, Freeman. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think that I kind of just want to synthesize some of the information I have, and if I have can get a contact number or email for you, I would love to be in touch with you. I do have some just some thoughts, but I have some questions first, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I definitely think, Freeman, to your point, that this would be something that I believe the NAACP across the state, but especially in Kent County, obviously, could be a partner in.
I would love to get together with you. Thank you.
And so Michael, we have 3 comments, Michael, Corey, and then Siobhan.
Real quick, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Sarah, you said that you're not the best speaker for it. I have to disagree. I just wanted to give you your kudos and praises because your passion can be felt every time we have the conversation. I'm over here fighting tears in this room. So I just want to give you your flowers that you indeed are the perfect person for this job. And we'll be happy to work with you to the best of our capacity. I wanted to touch base with you, as you kind of already mentioned it, but maybe just leading up to to homecoming the week of, whether it's between the partners who are here or just local businesses, if we can kind of do like a campaign for that entire week. And then Sarah, would you be able to, with the food bank in your area, have the capacity to be able to maybe pick those up the following week? So let's say if we have, the law firm up here in Wilmington, Delaware, and they have cans, but then you have places all throughout. Is that an option that we can look into?
Absolutely. So the food bank is happy to provide any logistical need. So we have the trucks ready. It's hard to, because the drivers are off on the weekends, the only challenge is, of course, having weekend pickups, but if it's during the week, we can do anytime. And then, of course, any pickup site would need to be able to, of course, just temperature control any rooms that have, formula or food in them. But usually there's not an extreme temperature in office buildings. And thank you for what you said, Michael. And I think there is so much opportunity between now and October to really get the word out, really advertise. If there's any possibility for Deshaun to be involved in advertising, I think that would take this from 10 to 100. I'd love to be able to interview him and just get him to speak about the food bank. But open to any and all ideas.
I also spoke with Dr. McLemore and Shelby Draper. So they're from the president's office. I spoke with them last week in regards to this, and they were on board as well. I did ask about the Deshaun Jackson endorsement and promotion. They weren't sure if that was an option, but they didn't say it was a no. So I'll follow back up with them. I have to meet with them later on this week, but I'll have that on our agenda. So once I have next steps or any comments from them, I'll follow up with you and the sewer as well.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning, all. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So as a member of the board at the Food Bank of Delaware, it really makes my heart smile that we are having this conversation, and the support that's generated around the Food Bank of Delaware, considering what's happening nationally in our country, and the freeze to USDA product here in our state. So I'm very, 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 I'm just sitting here just smiling because I'm very appreciative of this conversation. Now, I think we need to look at, short-term and long-term. And in Delaware, a lot of people, don't understand that the operations of the food bank. And I'm trying to do this big push around the food bank being in our state's budget. Right now, the food bank is not a line item budget in our state right now. And I think what's important is, that we can have a sustained operation at the food bank and not just rely on donated product, but having product or having us in the state's budget. And if we can have some movement around that, that'd be phenomenal. There are only 2 states right now, New Jersey, which is helping support our mission here in Delaware, and in Connecticut. They have legislation to put their food bank operation in their state budget. And if we could do that here, it will shoulder some of the load, but it will also mean that we'll stay in operation, and not just food distribution and some of our mass distributions at pantries, but also the programming that is happening at the food bank, like the Logic program, the kitchen school, and the culinary program, that are giving people skills and tools necessary to make it in the world in the culinary and warehousing business. So, I'm heavily entrenched in what's happening at the food bank. And if we have a rollout such as Del State or University of Delaware, some of our larger corporations, the Food Bank of Delaware, Milford site and Newark site will provide the boxes for any donations. So they drop them off and pick them up. I just wanted to say that.
I have a question, but I want to make sure everyone knows.
Siobhan.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I echo Mike's sentiments when you are a great speaker, very passionate, so thank you for that. I wanted to let you know, so my unit is a unit within a division of Delaware, division of small business, and so we actually are volunteering at the food bank next week for part of our service initiative. So if you have a list of much needed items that are needed right now that I can get to the staff that we can also bring down with us to donate, as well as when we are volunteering, that would be great. You mentioned the small business community or the business community as a whole, and because we do have those connections, I would probably connect you with our communications team to see how we can work with the business community. The month of May is Small Business Month. So we're working on a lot of initiatives. And I think that when people see that the business community is partnering and, putting their efforts to, the nonprofits like this, they are more apt, I know I am, to even patronize their business. So if I see a business that's, helping the community, I would want to, spend my money at that business. So it's a way that we can probably, help each other. So I would just connect with our communications director, Andrea Wojcik, to see what we can do, because we're gearing up for all these initiatives with the business community next month. We have relationships with organizations such as, the Restaurant Association. So just to make those connections with other agencies within the state of Delaware to really help out the food bank at this much needed time.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, it's Flor again. Really quickly, and I may have missed it, so please forgive me if I did. But I was just thinking through some of all the wonderful information you shared. And again, if I missed it, I apologize. But is there somewhere readily available demographic breakdown of recipients by race or ethnicity? Just wondering, through that information, how we can, as we move forward, assess first and foremost if the service is reaching communities equitably and where any improvements may be made or where there are some gaps. So that information would be helpful. Is that something that you collect?
Absolutely. So I did ask for coming to speak today if they had that data, and the team let me know that they're still working on last year's numbers, but I can follow up for you and make sure I reach back out. And I will also include, to Siobhan's point, the one figure we have on those needed items, so I can follow up with this group on both of those. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I mean, I know, everyone is struggling, right, from soup to nuts, but from the NAACP standpoint, obviously we have a fervent interest in upward mobility for Black and Brown communities. So we want to make sure, of course, when partnering on these types of initiatives, which is a wonderful initiative of a sort, I'm sure that it is something that we will continue to pursue. But just want to kind of look at the demographics and just make sure, because we need to do our due diligence if it's not, to ensure that, those who are most impacted by what we know is coming and what we've already been experiencing are being centered. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Of course.
And I have a question, just from my perspective, from a knowledge perspective. Currently, what level of funding do you receive from the General Assembly, if any?
Have the specifics, I can find out.
Okay, that would be really helpful. Good. Because that really ties into to Flora's point, that having that information about who's being serviced, and then also being able to have a real handle on whatever level of funding that we're receiving from the General Assembly. And actually, to Coy's point about the need to kind of make sure there's a level of service, because that as we move forward through all the different things we're thinking about, I think we always need to think about, putting a Band-Aid on the current situation, but we also have to really think a little bit more broadly in terms of sustainability and being able to get funding and things into the system so that they're there year after year after year, because that's going to be huge. And I think even beyond the current resident of the administration, I just think that we're in store, unfortunately, for some really troubled times in front of us. And I just think we need to make sure we put as many safeguards and guardrails in place as possible. So if you could gather that would be huge, because one of the charges of this group is that to identify a situation that impacts Black and Brown communities, and then to be able to, when it's appropriate, to serve as a spokesperson, a lobbyist, a major stakeholder, and speaking to all of the major power groups, including people in the business community, but also people in the General Assembly that are contemplating making laws. And so putting that together would be huge, and that would help us really stay on track in terms of our charge of be able to advocate in a more specific, targeted manner.
Absolutely, I think that's a great point, because events like this put a Band-Aid on a larger problem, and we want to get to the root of the larger problem. So I'll absolutely follow up with my team and put together some data for you, and I would love to work with you on conversations around legislation, because it's not on the governor's radar, and it needs to be. So we're trying to get the word out right now so that we can make some changes, but that does start.
So our commitment will be this: as Zua will be your point of contact. If you can get all the information to her, then we'll be able to send that to all of our members of our group, and to make sure that we're staying consistent and constant in terms of distribution of information, so that we don't lose the moment, because I just think it's really important. But I think we need to have all that information so that we can really make that real sound decision in terms of how we can impact the issue.
Thank you so much. I am committed to following up.
Okay. Sarah, I'll say, it warms my heart. I'm from Sussex, so it warms my heart for people to say that they're looking at doing upstanding work in Sussex County. For me, I'm a community person, so I immediately think grassroots, and I'm thinking about the now. A lot of the things we talk about are projections or for future partnerships, but not the immediate response of what we can do in the capacity that we have. We work with several organizations in Sussex County, and most of our programming is free. So it's nothing for us to say, hey, we're partnering with you. You can donate a canned good or donate whatever your items are. Ms. Jane as well, we have a lot of partners in Sussex, and I think if we could work on that relationship, again, you send that list of immediate needs when we're having these community events, getting those items to the event, something that we can prioritize as well. I love that you're looking at a grassroots route, partnering with businesses, because again, when we're not relying on federal funds, we need the community. So, in our space, we can do that.
Thank you, and I'd love to connect with you as well.
So I think this was an awesome conversation. I just want to Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have to turn about your friend. While you were speaking, we had to take a look at $204,000 from grant aid
Last year.
last year. That's, we can do better. We can do better.
Well, that leads me to kind of summarizing the conversation, and again, you did an excellent job. Every now and then.
Thank you.
And so I think there are, we say 3 prongs. Things that we could do to help bring this to fruition. As everyone's talked about, short term and long term, and what are the next steps. We definitely need to connect so that we can have a meeting with the powers that be here at Delaware State to figure out how this will work, the logistics, what we can do. I'm thinking some type of campaign every month to kind of soup this up and make it grand and big. So in addition to that, hitting the grassroots and community with the educational pieces, talking about food insecurity, food deserts, talking to students who may need assistance, because there's a food pantry here on campus as well. So if we hit that need as well, in terms of donations, some donations can go to the local, then it also will encourage more people to get involved. I definitely like the idea, and we should all figure out how we can have it in our own businesses and our own community groups to collect food, to help give this distribution and funding. If there's a way in which we can, because one of the goals and the missions of the Rich Equity Consortium is to provide legislation recommendations to the General Assembly. And I think once we get your information about the different demographics and the need, then we can formulate some recommendations for possible legislation to make sure that food bank has an earmark in the budget going forward. And you mentioned earlier about the proposed legislation that will take away free lunch or free birthday. That's horrible. So what can we do is that letter writing campaign, is that a letter to members of the General Assembly, don't do this because this is the reason why. So I want to connect with you and others so we can look at it from the legislation and policy point, as well as to community and education, because it's a two-pronged thing. And I'm just very excited about what can be done and will be done. And as Dr. Davis mentioned, this should be a pilot program. It should be all over down the state. And I'm sure it is. A lot of people doing, again, different things, helping the community. But I think the impact, if we all can work together, will be huge. So, yeah. Thank you so very much.
Thank you all.
Well, thank you.
Do you have any other questions or comments for Sarah, any ideas or anything anyone has?
Can I just say something? Yes. You know, this is my first time being here, and I'm just really excited to be here. As you were speaking and saying, you know, I almost started crying. Because when you start talking about mothers with babies, you know, need formula, food, and all the people they get to turn away, that's hard. It really is. Because people like the different churches, like on down in Sussex, I do, know that the food they do provide. So now it's going to get cut. So, just wanted to let you know that, I know we're all on the same page, we're on board together, and we're definitely going to do what we need to do to support. And if it's, like I said, my heart goes out to all that's going on, and just got to keep trusting God and keep from making it right and come together so we can support the food bank, because it's very important. So I just wanted to say congratulations. Like I said, tears almost started coming. I'm like, oh wow. But it hurts to hear that a mother, you have to turn away, or any family, especially with babies. And they're the ones going to be affected by this whole process.
May I ask, I'm sorry, one quick another question. Does the food bank work through local farms and farmers?
And the New York State Bank does have its own farm. We're working on that for the new location. See, so you can get out fresh produce, but the moment we do this.
Because my first year at Richmond Consortium, we partnered with another group just to provide food. We went to a community refrigerator, and it was outside of a doctor's office. And we went to a farm and we let them know what they had, they were gonna throw it out. It wasn't bad, it was close to bad. Put it in the refrigerator. My sister and I, and my mother also, we couldn't get the food out of the car to put in the refrigerator for people who were driving up, getting it. So that there is a need, and again, as I've been talking about, community and visibility. So those kind of things, we'll talk on all kinds of items.
I have one question, and then I promise I'll be sidetracking your meeting. May I ask which representatives you normally work with when you present legislation?
The great thing about this organization is that we were created through legislation specifically from the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus. So we have ties with all 16, 17 members of that caucus, as well as other groups. So, but 2 members of the caucus are members of the Bridge Bank Consortium, Stephanie T. Golden and Amadi Chilwell. I think that's correct. So that it is. And then we've also had lots of great conversations with Kendra Johnson, Mimi Brown, Larry Lambert, Franklin Cook, who is vice chair now. So we have plenty of connections, and we can definitely set that up with you. And in April, Dr. Freeman, Williams, and Ms. Jane and I, don't know the exact date, we will have a meeting with the governor. So it's one of the things I love at our agenda and talk with and discuss. So,
And in addition, just use my location, 2 members at in our location up in Newark, Representative Rumor and Representative, they were still, matter of fact, Representative Romer has all of her community meetings in food bank. So, yeah, I'm happy to.
So what we can do, we can generate a list when I was working in DC, a list of friends. Maybe supportive of the ideas for the food bank and what we're doing, and see how we can foster those relationships a little bit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, if no one has other questions, thank you, Sarah. We appreciate you presenting, and it's a great conversation about digital project and partnership, and that's what we really want to do. We have a charge to, again, talk about policy and legislation, but also partner, because we can't do it all. And I think the partnership will be very fruitful, no pun intended, very to help our communities. Thank you very much. If we are ready to move on, we can take a minute break or 2 minutes and then come back. Okay, so that takes 10:55, everybody. 10:55. We'll start back. Thank you. With the second part of this meeting. Thank you very much. I don't understand.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you send out my information next time? Absolutely. Yes. I would. I have not.
Yeah, because you know, you can go, before it was like an afternoon. Right now, I'm leaving it on the blank, but you can go in there and discuss the issues that you have. And I really believe that if you went on there and told them about what's going on as far as the food bank here in Delaware, and everybody knows what's happening. You would probably get an outcome.
Because part of the challenge we're having right now is, they're asking for more individuals to do what I'm doing, like on a volunteer basis, at part of staff, because they don't have the manpower to do it. Like, their staff is so only dedicated to even trying to continue where it's already been. They said that the community perception has been, since, you know, we didn't have so much funding for COVID specifically, like, why aren't you doing more of these events?
Right.
So there's the staff, the reduction, that's real.
I don't know if the staff reduction is going to happen. I know they're gonna stop as much as they possibly can, but the mission has to come before the number of people.
Sure.
And that. Well, I can't. Yes.
Yeah, and Delaware businesses already do a lot. Like, so much of what we do is already from businesses, so to ask them to step up even more, it's important, but like, some of these businesses might say, oh my gosh, like.
Because that's what I said on the WBOC.
Yeah.
They'll come from personal donations, individuals. We're trying to figure out who donate money to flowers and the circle, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
You know, minor things to see that this is true need.
Absolutely.
And, it comes on when,
Because we have a version of Newcastle. They call it 302, and they go in and make all kinds of stuff about what's going on in Delaware. And I don't know exactly what the station is, but I'm sure you're a public relations person would already familiar with it. But that would be another form to really do the same thing that James talked about in Kent Sussex, but to do it in Newcastle. I mean, people know, but I think people need to know
How dire.
That's
I think that they know, but you know, it's not what's put in them. You know, they hear it, but they have yet to come to understand exactly how dire the situation is.
True.
And the issue about the children without milk, I think it's something that they would be like, whoa, this is hitting home. And that might be exactly something that they would, I'm trying to find.
And it's interesting that someone, when you said that, someone trying to, is that a federal initiative to try to charge people for the people who get free inducements? Or is it self-made?
I'm not sure. So I thought that already this was being passed because right now, the next session, they're going to talk about like picking that back up and saying we need lunches to be free. I was just reading about it last night.
Okay.
But I know for Delaware that our numbers would skyrocket.
Yeah, because I know that was a real, one of the initiatives that the general assembly has to offer better focus to make sure that kids are able, more kids are able to get food and use lunch at school. So that's something we just gotta look into to see where that effort really is.
And if you have any other ideas, you know, as you're going about your days after this, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with all of you guys. Keep the conversation going.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, thank you all. Welcome back to the second half of the April meeting of the Racial Equity Consortium. We now are going to give a quick update about some activities that the Racial Equity Consortium is doing. And, just follow up on those activities. As you all know, on February 10th, the Racial Equity Consortium partnered with the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus with the Unapologetically Black Conference. And it was a success. It was, we had about over 200 people to attend, great panel discussions, great conversations, opportunity to hear from the members of the caucus, to talk about, to meet them if they had not already met them, and introduce themselves to the community at large, and talk about some of their successes and the legislation that are moving forward, and really an opportunity to network. So I believe that it was a success. We have any comments of anyone? Flora was on the panel. Ms. Jane was on the panel. Dr. Williams gave an opening remark. We had a video from Senator Lisa Blunt Rochester to give her remarks about the conference. And we worked well with Senator Darius Brown to put the conference together. And of course, Stephanie T. Golden, who was a member of the Racial Equity Consortium. So any thoughts about that? And I know there are some conversations about having the second annual next year. We'd be able to think about that. Anyone?
Flora, is your hand out in reference to this, or is it up from the previous time?
I think it would be up.
I'm sorry, Ms. Jane, did you ask me a question? I couldn't hear you too well.
I see your hand up. Is your
Oh,
hand
that
up?
was from the previous time. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah, but I think it was really, from our vantage point, we had a nice representation from our membership here. You know, as mentioned, both Laura and Jane were on a panel, and we had a number of people from our group here from the consortium that were there. And I think anytime you can get a group of people to have a serious conversation about the plight of our country and our community, I think it's a plus. The question that we asked, now what are we going to do with it? But I think before you can really start to do anything, you have to get people in the room and have those important conversations. You realize that there's a lot of alignment on issues and things, but there's things that we need to kind of recalibrate. But I started with a very necessary start and a need for more of that. You know, in our various organizations, we're doing similar things, and I know that there are a number of organizations that say that are listening and addressing what is the appropriate response to the current side of things that are present. But I think as many times as possible, getting people together and having the opportunity to really do some real extensive planning and strategizing, that's cool.
Well, I think the one main thing, and I've said it time and time again, is it's wonderful to have these different groups coming together, but we need to unite and work together, because we can accomplish more things with numbers, with individuals working together. And I think the strategy, the second meeting that you had in Wilmington, opened up the knowledge that we need to work together in order for us to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish and make the inroads that we need to make and change it. It's going to take us working together. This group doing this and this group doing that and that group over there doing something. We're all spinning our wheels trying to accomplish the same thing. Whereas if we came together and worked and unified, we could accomplish a lot more. We could get a lot more done. Even when it comes to legislative body, there's more that we can get done because we're working. And we need to set up and decide which step we're going to take first.
So that actually is a great segue to the second part of the conversation. At our January meeting of the Racial Equity Consortium, there was a conversation about we should have a roundtable discussion to get the organizations together who actually are doing the same thing that we're doing it differently, but that we are stronger together than apart. So the conference, the Elder College Led Conference is already in the works. But at that conference, we were able to, again, connect with groups that were not a part of the Racial Equity Consortium. So on February 28th, there was a meeting in Wilmington, a roundtable discussion about social justice, diversity, equity, inclusion organizations, just some, because all of them could not attend, and of course, I don't know all are doing something in the state. We were able to meet for 2 hours in Wilmington to talk about the issue and issues at hand, what we should do as a group, how we can support one another. So I'll just give a quick update about that meeting, and then we can have a more robust conversation about what are our next steps as we plan for the second roundtable discussion, and then for the future activities of the Racial Equity Consortium. So about 10 organizations were in attendance, ranging from the ACLU to the NAACP, Network Delaware, Out Loud. Our state agencies were in attendance, other members of the Racial Equity Consortium. So we were able to talk about, as I said, the elephant in the room, which is, as of yesterday, the 28th of March, there have been 107 executive orders, proclamations, presidential actions, however he's describing these things that have taken place that have been detrimental to not only communities of color, but in general. As I told my class yesterday, he's an equal opportunity offender. It's not just targeting one group, it's targeting everyone who is not Anglo-Saxon white men. And what, as young students studying constitutional law, what are you going to do? So we had that conversation, and so it comes to us as people in this space, what are we going to do? We do not have to have a thought, boy, if I was living in the 60s, or if I was born in this, we are in this time now, that we need to really talk about what we need to, how to address these issues. A lot of the things he's done is unconstitutional. It will be struck down by the Supreme Court when it gets there. Now, I'm saying this because I'm hoping the Supreme Court in this, unbiased faith at the Constitution. Because even if they decide that this one is okay, there are benchmarks, there are checks and balances that are in place, that Congress can only do certain things, President does certain things, and the judiciary, we have the 3 branches of government. And again, I get so upset when I hear about things that are happening and following his lead of foolishness when he has no authority to do so. But he's a bully, and people are afraid, and the chaos and fear, it's real. But what are we going to do to stem that? And a lot of that comes with working together, being educated about the issues and educating others, and being in the community and being part of the solution versus the problem now versus just at election time. So those are some of the things that we talked about, and ideas in which we need to really talk about further, and we shall do so. But any other thoughts before I talk about some specifics?
I'm going to say too that we can't get overly consumed with what's happening at the federal level and neglect our things that we do here within our state, within our county, because I know people sometimes fall into what I call the illusionary trap. They'll say, well, that's happening there, that's not happening here. I think that's a major misconception. And as much as we possibly can, if we can localize and figure out what are some things that we can do at the state level, city level, county level, whatever. Because they're tangible, they're reachable, and they're things that we can do to kind of fight back that terror. Because people ask, I mean, I'm sure all of us here on the call, people always ask us, what can they do? And I've just come to the realization that trying to identify things that they really can do that are, you know, that are tangible and real. Because knowing what the generals, knowing what your local representatives do or not do, knowing what your county council is doing, you know, or not doing, whatever. And knowing what your school board, I mean, it goes down to every level and making sure that people who are not doing things that are in the best interest of black and brown individuals, they have to be held accountable. And we can't wait to July 26th and then put on full court press. And we can't wait to somebody, individuals who do this every 2 or 4 years, they started to do their victory tour when they started coming into our churches and stuff. And, you know, there are all kinds of things that people do, and we just have to have a counter strategy that holds them accountable, like the officials. And when they're not doing what they need to do, we need to make sure that that's addressed. And we also can't lose sight of when we're having various events, we need to make sure that we're having voter registration opportunity, because we need to make sure that folks are registered to vote, so that when it's time to vote, that the silly games and things that are normally played can't be played. So those are my 10 things that I try to share with people, and I try to incorporate them in my own strategy and address that.
No, that, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. And with us being a part, you know, having been put together by the, our initiative Black Caucus, I just think that we, as part of our responsibility, is to say to them, okay, this is what's going on, and this is what we need to do. Because we have more power than we do, and we need to continually go before them and communicate with them and ask them to act.
Yeah.
Because they have power that we can talk about, but they have capabilities of putting things into action, into legislation.
And to that, Jamie, to that point, maybe there might be some times they may need us to be mobilized to come down and go to the General Assembly. And I know lots of people on this call and whatever are going to the General Assembly and doing that kind of work already. I think for our organization, we need to kind of start and mobilize what we can do as well. Support the work that our organization does.
Okay, well, I think those are great conversation starters, because one of the things we talked about was to make sure that we meet with the governor and the general assembly, so they can talk about these issues that are very important. And we can plan, if not this year, but definitely within the next, I guess that off season, like a rec advocacy day. And of course, we will be coming in our own capacity, not as members of whatever agency or organization we're part of. We'll be coming in our own capacity just to really talk about. And even if we have some type of, as I always call them, one-pagers or leave behind to education, we can do, as there are some new members of the General Assembly, not just Black Caucus, new members in general, on both sides of the aisle. What we can do is create a one-pager information leave behind about the Racial Equity Consortium and the issues that are important to us. So we can start the education piece. So if they need a friend to help them to write a letter or testify, be a witness, whatnot, they have information about the Racial Equity Consortium. So I think that's one tangible solution, concrete thing that we can do in terms of educating the General Assembly about we are a Station Equity Consortium. The second thing that we can do is make sure that we have a list of all of our partners and supporters, strategic partnerships. We are doing that. Since we had this meeting on the 28th, we have partnered with Delaware, we as an Enrichment Equity Consortium, to be a part of the three-part series that Jalen and her group put together about We Gonna Be All Right, talking about the issue and what we can do in the community and addressing the needs of the community. My peers, Jordan Spencer and Jane Hamilton, who are representatives of the Bishop Equity Consortium, each on these panels, as well as Flora, who's a member of the on the panel. So we were very happy to be a part of that. And then, Joe, you can just talk a little bit about your feeling around how it came about and what other things that we can do to assist you, not only with other community outreach programs, but how was it for you?
Yeah, so how this conversation came about is much like conversations, spaces like this. I was invited to a lot of spaces with community leaders, advocates, government officials, but it's the same people in the same room. And me coming from Sussex County, Delaware, small town in Delaware, I'm big on representation. Like that's one of my core values. And I realized that we were talking about community members who were not in these spaces. And a lot of the community members were getting sound bites or little snippets on social media about what was going on. And there was a panic. There was an emotional panic going on and throughout the country. And I wanted to, one, slow down the pace of change to really articulate exactly what is happening politically, how it's impacting the community, but most importantly, not only to the community, but have an opportunity for the community to tell us what is going on in their spaces and how they feel they could best be supported. Speaking on behalf of Network Connect, our model is we do direct outreach, and our model is we never tell the community member what they need, they tell us what they need, and then we figure out how to support them. So in a lot of these spaces, we are going by our proximity, going by our capacity, going by hearsay, but it's another thing to get direct insight from community members. And not only having those conversations, but being able to articulate in ways that are comprehensive to them. They don't have political backgrounds. They don't know what HB and SB, they don't know what those bills are, how they're impacted. So being able to translate their language in ways that are comprehensive. And to Dr. Asua's point, education, what we found from the feedback, we collected feedback on surveys, and a lot of the spaces, like I'll just quickly go through each event. In Wilmington, we had majority white people in the room. In Sussex County, or Dover, we had majority Black people in the room, and then Sussex County, it was majority Black, but it was older crowd. And I will say the feedback that we got was, one, they wanted to hear more youth voice, issues around youth and galvanizing the youth. Mental health was a big theme that came up, but also educate. Like that education piece is so critical. A lot of the community is just, I'll use a word from one of the attendees, conditioned. A lot of our people are conditioned so we don't show up in these spaces. So if we're going to involve the General Assembly, if we're going to involve the Black Caucus, I think one, they need to go to where the community is. That's number one. Number two, we need to have trusted individuals in these communities to articulate and disseminate information to them until they get comfortable speaking up for themselves. Right now, there may not be a space where the community members are coming to the legislative hall, or they're coming to they're speaking out to their reps and their senators. Maybe it's us on their behalf, but in order to have those conversations, we have to meet the community where they are. And I'll say another big thing that came from that is the community, they actually like talking when someone takes the time to listen, and they want these conversations to continue. They may not know every event we had an action item at the end. They may not know how to advocate for themselves or how to get involved. It may be something as simple as making a phone call or showing up to a school board meeting or a city council meeting. It doesn't have to be running for office. It doesn't have to be coming to let call. It could be something as simple as, having a conversation with a neighbor. There's so many ways to get involved, and we gave them those opportunities on multiple facet levels. So, that was just something that came about. We do plan to run it again, and have the youth lead the charge, so have young adults moderate and be on the panel. So that's something that I look forward to. But they want the conversation to continue because again, they have that safe space to just be, and they're not judged for what they do or do not know. And they have people that will take the time to explain, and they trust that when we get the information, we're going to elevate their voices in the space that we're in.
Next time that we plan, wonderful you did about the counties. Next time, if we, the word out to us early enough so we can, you've identified some important stakeholders, so maybe we can help to, get those folks there, because, a New Castle County, we gotta do, me and everyone else, we gotta do a little bit of a job, because enough people who look like us are not there, that's not good.
And I would say, just to keep like the culture too, with these conversations, I don't want to make it political. It really is to hear from the community, specifically with community members. So if it's even a vehicle for us to get information to those that are in decision-making seats, that's fine. Because I feel like when you make it too political, then you start to lose the trust that the community has in you. So, and I'm from Sussex, so not a lot happens in Sussex. So my biggest thing was, and if I want to say representation, I want to honor that. So I'm gonna make sure Sussex is at the table. I'm gonna make sure Dover and Newcastle, Wilmington is good. So absolutely.
One last question, so I can.
Yeah.
The other location that you had in Cass County is where?
We had it in Wilmington at the public library.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one thing that I found, not that the Sussex County, is the clarification of fact and fiction. Because you hear, everything comes across the television, and they heard this and heard this, the opportunity to bring to light what they had heard. And to find out that actually, even though the USDA is trying to stop the truck, well, that doesn't mean to do bad disclosure. And, these are things that they heard, and so it was clarification. And as she said, they were ready, willing to speak out. And the question everybody had, well, where is everybody? And we sent out emails for, and what's so comical is I received calls saying, well, you didn't send it to me, but I did send it to you. And so, but I wasn't aware. I said, maybe I did send it out too early. And I did send a reminder. But the fact of the matter is that it's not. So now, what's the next?
Yeah, I would say one thing, I was very intentional about, we had faith leaders, we had nonprofit leaders, we had advocates, we had students. I wanted to hit from so many different levels. The churches were the basis of the civil rights movement. So I want to make sure we have faith leaders to get the church back involved. Nonprofits are being hit left and right. They're doing social services. If they're doing any type of Black and brown led initiatives, they're getting it left and right. I want to make sure they were at the table. We had NSA Jackson with the Division of Small Businesses. Businesses are getting it. I want to make sure they were at the table. So the community got to hear from stakeholders about what's going on in their rooms, but we got to have the chance to break that information down so they could see how they're directly impacted and what they can do now. And so right out in Colorado, but she was also in the room. So, but yeah, it was really, really good to hear from the community. We always preach, use your voice, use your voice, use your voice. This is an opportunity for them to do that.
So I think what we need to do, to follow up with that, and going in the same vein we talked to Sarah about, is providing some more additional opportunities for the education piece. That's what makes it, I think what we're doing now is in partnerships, talking about legislation a lot, but a lot of it is again, the education piece, knowing your rights, what fact versus fiction. That could be a topic in itself. And just basic civics, because I know 2 nights from now, tomorrow night, Racial Equity Consortium is partnering with the Central Delaware chapter of the NAACP to host a candidates forum for city council. Because again, as Dr. Freeman Williams said, we have to start at the local level. So we're not just, because everything is, all politics is local. That was a statement from Tim Williams, who used to be a former Speaker of the House in the U.S. Congress. But it is true, all politics is local because a lot of the legislation and policies bubble up from local levels. It comes from city council, county executive, state houses, and then it goes to the federal level. And school boards are very important. So, but what I do really appreciate that was done last week, there was a Zoom call for anyone who wanted to attend to talk about what does the city council do? So they can know, you know, this is why it's important for you not only to come out to meet the candidates, but also to vote. Because unfortunately, non-federal elections, very small voter turnout. And people are registered. I don't know if they don't realize that once you're registered to vote, you can vote in all of the elections, not just the election for the president of the United States or for the state senator or for senator or representative. There was, I can't remember where it was election, some city in Delaware. There had 300 people to vote. And I think there were 3,000 citizens of that city. But it happens all the time. So as we said, we need to be in the community talking about the issues, registering people to vote, and letting them know that the local elections are also very important.
Just curious, where will the candidates be located and what, because I think sometimes like, they don't say what happens is certain populations that receive the information. So like I live here, I thought about the page, but I didn't see anything about me,
Okay, it is tomorrow, the 2nd, at Dover Public Library.
What time?
It's 5:30.
Okay.
5:30. Yes, and I will be sure to send that out. I've been sending it out here. To be honest, I don't even know if it went on.
Yeah,
Right on the page. Yeah, so we'll definitely have to get all of that information out.
And I think you were talking about the importance of understanding the rules for a school board election. You don't have to be registered. You just have to be a resident of that particular area. And I think there's, to the point, there's a lot of misinformation that you have to be registered. No, you don't. You just have to be, you have to reside in, you know, obviously, the whole department has to be in that area. That's.
I think that, and then this is just a general comment for everything that we do. The point is that was feedback too for the business, how we get information out. Everyone's not on social media, everyone's not on Facebook. Your neighbors are, you know, someone else's neighbors. So even if it's door knocking or giving out flyers to businesses, to people or neighbors, neighborhoods rather. But finding creative ways to get information out so people do know. So sometimes that came up too. It's not that they can or they won't come, they just don't know about it.
Right. But it speaks back to your earlier point, it's so important. Identifying who those trusted community folks are so that they can take information. If they hear from, if it's person X who's in the community, person who's trusted from that community, he or she said it, they've already passed the credibility test, whereas someone like me comes in, yeah, I may have information, but people don't know who I am or know anything about me. There's a little reluctance to this.
To your point, Mr. Freeman, we did data on that as well, how people found out about it. The majority of our attendees was word of mouth.
Yeah, I do. Yes.
So that brings me to another part of our strategy discussion to talk about develop a communication plan that includes word of mouth, social media, and other forms of communication, because it does vary how people get information and what's more useful. I was telling you in the class last night, for me, if I remember, I go on Facebook, where they don't even have a Facebook page. They're on Instagram. Yeah. So again, we have information, social media, but there are different ways to get information out. But if you talk to my mother, what happens in the church is gospel, and that's it.
Yeah.
If the pastor said it, She's like, did you hear it? Yes, ma'am, I heard what you said. So again, it's the information, same information, but how it's distributed. So I think I'm not a communications person, but as we identify our strategic partners, the people and skill sets, each of us have our own skills. We're not going to, we should all utilize the skills that we have. So we need to kind of figure out a little bit how we can get information out. What is our communications plan? Is it small, especially for social media, sound bites, headlines, things that 30-second clips, 15-second videos, something that will grab you in, keep you and inform you, or is it the flyer that goes out to the churches, to the barber shops, to the beauty salons, the nail salons, where people who may not, to James' point, involved in politics or anything like that, but they're sitting down and reading this like, what's this? So they're informed. So I think that's something that we all can do and something that we can discuss at the second part of the roundtable, but just some ideas that we can discuss here today to make sure that we are really addressing the need that's for us. Any other thoughts about that? Anyone have any thoughts online about anything, especially those who attended the roundtable? Anything that you thought about?
Yeah, so this is Corey. I like the idea that I think Jalen presented it, that we'll talk about the issues and not the person, right? And when we start talking about the issues that affect us, our neighbors, and anybody else in between, then we can get some movement going. But the moment we mention, who's in the office and what he's doing or not doing, then we lose a lot of people. And so the strategy to just focus on the issues that affect humanity is what we need to be focused on. So that was one big takeaway I had from that meeting. The other thing, as it relates to electing the right people, the mayor down in Laurel just lost his seat to a very young, not young, but I don't know how old he is, but a guy who just came into that area several years ago. Mayor Schwed been there for 20 years as the mayor, which is, in my perspective, a little too long. But kind of moving these people out of office that's been there for for eons of years, just so we can get some fresh perspective and fresh voices and faces in these elected positions. So that was a surprise, and I think I saw you put it quite frankly, right? The vote was 117 to 112, something like that. And so out of a town of 4,000, 7,000 people, 100 and 219 people show up. And so I had to ask the question: is that normal for? And I don't even know if it was a special election, but is that normal for that amount of people to show up? Because shoot, it seemed like we can get that at a community fair. You know what I mean? So I think just galvanizing around that, and these school board elections too. I don't know if we talked about that, but these school board elections, we really need to get a forward thinking, our view, our perspective folks in those seats, because what's happening in our educational system is atrocious.
Right. According to that point, all school board elections, on the high side, very rarely do they have the winning margin is at 500. And in many communities show you how just it's frightening. And in many communities, the school board, the school district, their budgets are some of the largest budgets that elected public officials have to deal with. I'll deal specifically with New Orleans. I know very, very specifically. The Christian School District budget is probably at about 400, I'm at 200, maybe 50 million. That is actually 2 times the amount of the city of Newark. So everyone gets to be acting all worked up about that, but here's something that impacts our most important entity, our children, and you have to pull teeth to get people out to vote, and it allows, when people know that it's going to be a small total of people that are going to galvanize or win election, those people that are one-trick ponies and have that, my words not yours, those crazy ideas, they get their folks out and other people don't. And that's when we end up getting people that their interests are not shown, their interests are other issues. And that's why we get what we get.
I'll say to Mr. Corey's point, and this is Jalen speaking to personal feelings. One thing that came up in our conversations as well, and our last one in Sussex, I had a representative from the Hispanic community on the panel. We are not experiencing different issues, same issues, different ways. And it's the same thing when you talk about Kent, Sussex, and Wilmington. Second to say, our first meeting, I also let them know, and this is not by any means saying change and keep the mission, stand 10 toes down on the mission. But when we're talking about these issues, you can say the facts, but they're not Black and brown issues. These are issues that affect our humanity, period. The data says it's disproportionately affected by Black and brown people, but these are issues that affect my humanity, me and human, period. And I think when we understand that, we can start to try to mitigate the divide. I understand we may not cancel entirely, but at least mitigate that gap. And we're getting white people to the table. We're getting Asian Americans to the table. We're getting Native Americans and Hispanic Latinos to the table, because we're going to need, being the minority by number in this state, we are going to need allies. We're going to need everybody to move this mission and keep moving the flag post. So I think when we're having these conversations, keeping that in mind, that at the end of the day, you can't dispute my humanity. You may not like Black, brown, blue, or purple, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to respect my humanity. So.
And it's data, and the data.
And the numbers.
Right. So I think when we go about our creating our communications plan, speaking to other folk, finding out who our strategic partners are, we need to just say just that, facts, and this affects us all, and not just this group or that group, or sitting back and waiting, it's you now, it was me last week. No, we are all affected about what is going on, even if it doesn't directly affect me, because I'm not going to sit back and watch, as we said earlier, a mother and child go hungry just because I don't have a child. That makes no sense. Or, so there are certain things that if we change the lens of how we look at this, it will make sense, and we'll be able to have our strategic partners. So another assignment that we talked about is identifying other groups.
Yeah.
That would be really interested in and supporting not only the Racial Equity Consortium, but the different issues that we talk about. As you all know, we have 7 pillars: community engagement, housing, education, economic empowerment, safety and justice, health and welfare. And of course, it doesn't matter when I say it, I always miss one, but there are 7. Infrastructure and environment. So there are a huge wide range of issues that we can really talk about and find friends and partners in those particular issues. Another quick story, when I was in Washington, D.C., when I worked for National Association of Social Workers, we talked about what's one of our issues, foster care system. And we found our biggest ally, which he was only our ally on that particular issue, a Republican, I can't remember his name, New York, Texas, he's since passed on, but he was a staunch Republican on against everything social workers were doing, except that one issue. He was our best friend, foster care, because he grew up in the foster care system. So he knew, and it didn't matter what the other people were saying about it. If it came down to funding for foster care issues, he was all in because that was important to him. So again, I think when we talk about strategic partners, who we work with, think outside the box. Is there an issue that someone's important with, and someone who may not be or someone you would ever work with, but on this particular issue, they are our friend, and vice versa. So as we, Michael is already working on the directory. He has a good start, and I think as we meet and talk, and I'll send out notes so people can give their ideas and who their contacts are, so that we can really identify our strategic partners, and the issues that we can align ourselves so that we can make sure that we are working at our best, not just spinning around in circles, but really doing something. Because I think my grandma would always say this: "You're in a rocking chair, you're moving, but are you really moving? Are you going it?" So I think what we need to do is not be rocking and spinning around in circles, but literally moving the needle, going somewhere, and actually making a difference. And a lot of this is not long term or short term, it's ongoing. So we have small victories, but we will have victories. We just have to keep on going. Any other thoughts before I move on to something else?
Just real quick, the last thing I say, just about comms plan. I think to your point about strategic partners, we also have to be strategic in action. And I think the comms plan will be a huge bulk of that. Around George Floyd, just being strategic with the times. When George Floyd passed, if you talk the diversity, equity, inclusion, people were running to support you. They were running to give you funds, running to give you whatever. That language is not going to give you the same support right now. Again, it's not rolling backwards, but I do think we do have to be strategic with the times if we want support. There are some organizations that can be absolutely, it does not matter what you say, do stand on that. But I think for this mission and what the REC is trying to do, with so many different strategic partners, we have to be strategic in our comms plan.
Absolutely. One thing I was thinking about, while we will not change the name Racial Equity Consortium, it's in law. And I spoke with Black Caucus, like, don't you dare to think about it, that's fine. But we can be strategic in our wording, community engagement. There are a lot of different words we can use that go towards the same goal, but not necessarily, especially if we're trying to reach out to different organizations that may be weary about diversity, equity, inclusion, not because they don't want to support, but because they're lose their funding, or not get the grants, or working in some sort of foundation. So again, that's very important to be creative, and very intentional.
Yeah, my dad will always say, get in the room first, get in the room first. Once you're in there, you can say what you want, but get in the room first. And trust me, organizations are like, organizations have already told me straight up, like, hey, certain things we can't support, but if you let us know, we can at least make that decision. And if we got support on the table, that's what we do. I'll take you on the table support. If it helps with the mission forward, I will take it. But I understand that people are in different spaces and they have different capacities, and I respect that. So.
It's about getting things done.
It's about getting it done.
And I just want to say kind of not all thing, but I just wanted to say, have you paid attention to where these Nazis or whatever you want to call it, went into the Ohio neighborhood? Are you paying attention to that, what has happened? And I just wanted to say, what are your thoughts about that? Because I think right now that we as Black people, we need to really be paying attention to that, because I feel like they're going to start targeting more of our Black communities, going into the neighborhoods and start causing trouble. So I'm not going to worry, but I'm concerned, that this is going to be on the rise. And it's because I went to bed thinking about it, and ever since I've seen that, and I just got feeling like, our Black communities really need to kind of really start thinking about how we're gonna protect ourselves if they decide that they wanna start coming into our communities. That's something that we need to be thinking about as well, because I think that's a big concern. You know, 'cause if they did it there, I feel that they're gonna start everywhere else.
Right.
So that's a concern.
No, it is a concern, and unfortunately, there are some segments of our population who are golden, and feel as if they can do anything and not suffer the consequences. So I think what we as a people and a community need to be aware of the issue, what's going on, but also be strategic. Talk about in our neighborhoods, in our families, in our communities, what we should do, what will happen if this happens, what should we do, how should we do it, how should we move, how do we move within the law? And I think that's critically important. It's just as we have the same conversations with our young people. What do you do when I'm talking about the cops? These are the same type of conversations that we need to have, because we're living in a different conversation, but the same issue. And I think that's something that goes with the educational piece, really how we need to be purposeful in response.
Yeah, because I think one of the goals is, you know, as a community, as Black communities, or we really need to get in the communities. And, you know, I'm officially retired now, and I, you know, how to get our boots on the ground. We really need to get in the community, and I've been in Sussex as well, and I just feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done. A lot of our folks need to be educated, because, you know, I'm gonna say with my son, you know, he spent prison time 6 years. He got out and said, you need to get your stuff straight now, and he did. He got a pardon and all that, and now he's involved in Sussex, you know, in everything. Not only just about being a Democrat, but whatever, but the fact of the matter is, he's like, Mom, my job is now to get in the community with the young folks, young men. He said it to me, he said, because I want to be able to help them as well. And that's his goal, and I'm gonna hold him to it, because he lives with me. And, you know, she's doing well, and he's doing good. He encouraged another young man with his part. So he's really committed to doing that, and I'm gonna stand behind him as far as that. You know, being a young man, you know, spent in prison time 6 years, didn't have to, but he just fell into a trap. And I'm not afraid to tell that story about what he did. And I'm glad he's on the right track to doing the right thing.
Awesome. Very good. Congratulations to your son.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, I was just gonna say, I agree with what you have indicated. People have been emboldened, not just in the community, but on the job, because my title is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so just, and some people can speak unfiltered, you know, and not have to worry about, not think about another person, you know, individuals coming back unfiltered to them. And so I think, like you said, we're just being prepared to have like talking points when people do that as well, like just being prepared, talking points, being prepared, you know, like I said, in the community.
Right. Okay, so that's another, that leads me to my next thing. We talk about creating the one-pagers and information. There are a lot of different organizations that are really already doing this work. And what I will do is trying to create a repository of information so you can just go to it. Not you, but anyone can just go to it. For example, talk about the executive orders that are out there. On the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation website, it lists all of the executive orders and what it means for Black and Brown community. They've already done the work. Click on it and it provides you information. And there are a couple of other law firms that have also done that too. So I think I will send that information out so that we can have it. So there's, regardless of what the issue that you are dealing with, there's an executive order that said equal opportunity offender. There's something there, and someone has already looked at it and analyzed it through the lens of the Black and brown community. So again, that's the information that's out there. Partnerships, strategic work, we don't have to do it, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Someone is already doing that. And so we can, you know, as we share that information, we're supporting the Professional Black Promise Foundation. And in turn, we should support each other and our organizations and different programs and activities that they're having. Tomorrow, Cassandra and I will be going to an event run or created by the Delaware Department of Health, Human Resources, talking about some follow-up to Women's History Month, which ended yesterday. However, it's with all the women who have run, Black women, who have run the Department of Labor. So we have Lucretia Moultrie, Senator Carol Hubbard. I'm can't think of the other ladies. Oh gosh. Jill. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So they're talking about, they were together to talk about something. Black women's history. That is something that we can do to support, not only for them to see friends in the audience, but provide us, get the information that we need going forward if they need something in the resource. Hi, I'm a student from Russia Consortium. Introductions. Be strategic in our movement. And another thing that we all need to do, I go to events, sometimes just as a store, but most times I'm going as Racial Equity Consortium, just to be in the audience, just to put my name on the paper so they can see, oh, who's here, so they can provide an opportunity for further connection and conversation. And I would encourage each of us as we do that. Sometimes you're going through your job, perfectly understandable because my job is Racial Equity Consortium. However, if you're someplace and you're out and you know you're thinking about that, be a part of Racial Equity Consortium. Ask them to call me, and so we can have these conversations because we definitely need to do so. So again, different things that Racial Equity Consortium, and I'll send a video out or PowerPoint. We've gone to Black History Month events. The Delaware Black Caucus was very instrumental, or wanted to make sure that Marcus Garvey received a presidential pardon. He did. His son spoke in Delaware Law School in February. I went there to see him, and so it's a full circle. And in terms of what we're doing, again, the tracker, we had our civil rights conversation. Something I need to talk about very quickly, very important. As you all know, the Racial Equity Consortium and Delaware Legislative Black Caucus is working to make sure that there's a uniform framework curriculum to teach Black history. We've signed the contract. We have our contractor, Ms. Dion Patterson. She will create lesson plans, teacher guides, videos, everything that needs to be for each week, a weekly lesson for each grade. So she started in kindergarten all of the 12th grade. So it's going to be a 14-month contract. She's already turned in something preliminary. I'll send that out to our chain coach, but if not, I'll do it again. Send it to our education subcommittee. So she's diligently working. She will meet and present preliminary findings and her work to the Racial Equity Consortium probably in either the May or the July meeting. I don't know which one right now. So she can give us an update. So we are on track to be able to provide the curriculum teaching Black history to any school district or partner school who needs it. Again, as we said earlier, there are some schools that are doing it. They have no problem, they have the work. But there are other schools who only talk about MLK doing Black History Month and nothing else. But what she's also doing is looking at the lens not only of history, but from science, from the arts, from technology, however it is that Blacks are involved in history, she is talking about trying to make a way to put it in part of the lesson plans and the curriculum. So that's one concrete thing that Rec is doing, and we'll have definite updates throughout the year. Okay. Then of course we have new leadership in the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus. Kendra Johnson is no longer the chair. The chair is Nwadi Namdi Chiwoka. He is a member of the REC. He is now the chair of the Black Caucus. The vice chair is Franklin Cook, who's also his friend. And of course, we know the founder of the Black Caucus is our REC member, Stephanie T. Bowman. So we have, again, members and friends within the caucus, and we need to utilize them. The Racial Equity Consortium partnered with the Links of Delaware, the Bolton and Dover chapter to put on a Black Family Wellness Expo. There were over 30 vendors doing everything from healthy eating, planting seeds for a garden. We had blood pressure tests, chair yoga, stretching, line dancing. DJ Cox, who was a registered of wills here in Dover, gave a presentation, talk about wills of trust. There were others talking about stress management and how to woosah and really get ourselves centered as we go through these troubling times. So again, trying to position the racial equity consortium in spaces that we may not necessarily be, but since we have an initiative to talk about health and wellness wants to be at the table and in part of that program. So there are other programming or issues or things that are happening within the state that we can be a part of. We'll definitely be a part of that. Let's see, what's next one? We partnered with the 100 Coalition of 100 Black Women for Strength of Woman. People in attendance, the honorary co-chairs were Stephanie T. Bowman, REC member, Senator Blunt Rochester, who was in attendance, as well as First Lady Tara Allen. It was an amazing event. All the panel had, women. We talked about health, education, and economic empowerment. So we were very excited to have also Joe Tate, who's the founder of Women Black Women, to speak. So it was a great partnership to be a part of this event, and we hope to continue to partner not only with the coalition, but also the other partners, and another partner was with the NAACP of Middletown, Odessa, Towson. So it was a good partnership to talk about those issues. And again, I'm gonna say all this up for everyone just have that. Earlier this year, we also one of our members, Richard Potter, was a speaker at a panel discussion here at Del State about the implications of dismantling the Department of Education. So that was a good conversation. And then we also work with the student groups here on campus, the NAACP chapter here on campus, as well as the National Black Women in Science or in Medicine to talk about women's issues that young women have. Those are childbearing age. And it was an excellent presentation and good partnership with our kids that were the Racial Equity Consortium interns help plan that program. So what we're trying to do is really get children, our youth involved in issues that are important to them and to important to all of us. I spoke at the Women's History program to really talk to our young women about realizing that they are okay and that they can get through things. And of course, we partnered with Jerry for We're Gonna Be All Right. And then we have a candidates forum tomorrow evening. That is it for me. In terms of updates that the Racial Equity Consortium is doing, we will have more again with the food bank, a lot of different things we'll be doing. Hopefully I'll get more staff, but if not, it's all good.
We will allow.
Yes, thank you. And just to remind everyone, when we have our closing remarks, that the next Racial Equity Consortium meeting will be May 20th. We normally meet on the fourth Tuesday of the month because of Memorial Day. We're meeting on the third Tuesday. So that's May 20th here in this room, 310, Bank of America building at 10 a.m. And we'll also have a virtual option for those who cannot make it here. So that is the next meeting, and the meeting after that is July 22nd, Tuesday, July 22nd. And I will get send all this information out. So that is it for me. I will, as my action to do items, send the handout that Sarah had from Food Bank to everyone who's in attendance today. I will send out her contact information, so everyone, if you need to reach out to her individually, can do so. And whatever information that she sends to me regarding demographics or funding, I also will send out. We will set up a meeting with the members, people here at Delaware State University, talk about logistics and how we get this project along with Food Bank, as well as how we can be strategic in setting up spots in Suffolk County, as well as Youth Council, so we can have this big culminating event in October for homecoming, whether it's a big presentation, I don't know how it look, something that's gonna be splashy, get some media here, we can definitely do that. And in addition to the notes from our February 28th meeting, the roundtable discussion, I will send notes from today about what we talked about, and then hopefully set up the next roundtable discussion, because everyone can't be at this meeting, but they can be at the roundtable discussion. I'll set that up hopefully the next month or two as well. So that's it for me, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Williams and Ms. Jane for final remarks.
I'd just like to say again, thank everyone who's in attendance, person and obviously virtual option. And we just have to continue to work. I was writing a mix of it, and I just know that we're going to continue to focus and make the connections and need to, and just we're going to forge ahead. Thank you.
Again, I still stress, working in partnerships together and targeting, making our some objectives and things we're going to accomplish and accomplish. I think we're doing it.
Well, we are right at noon, so I thank everyone for coming and being a part. For those who are here, we will have lunch in person, so be sure to say if you can eat, and those online. Thank you, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye now. Bye.